What is going on, Cardano Nation? Welcome back to the Dapp Central channel. My name is Fareed, and as a part of today's video, I've got a brief appearance that I just made on the NGMI Podcast. Now, this is going to be a new podcast series hosted by Subcritical, who focuses on the growing DeFi and Cardano space, as well as JSpeak, who focuses on the metaverse and AI growing projects across the entire network. I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and follow both of these people within the Cardano ecosystem, given their track record and experience in this space. Now, before I run this video back for you guys here, I want to highlight exactly what we talked about. So the first thing we mentioned or we discussed was an ongoing dilemma within the Cardano or just within the general blockchain space, which is the fact that a lot of people or a lot of platforms and dApps in the ecosystem allow for us to connect our wallets without necessarily giving us the ability to actually create one directly from their platform. The next item that we talked about were the 3 top projects that we personally thought would have the longest longevity or would be lasting for more than 3 years within this ecosystem. And then in closing, we talked about the recent highs that have been made as a part of the Cardano TVL. Again, if you guys appreciate any of these content creators, make sure to follow them using the links that I've left down in the description. And as always, if you guys find this content to be useful, please make sure to tap that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by this channel, consider subscribing for more content just like this. And if you have any questions for me or JSpeak or Subcritical, then make sure to leave those down below. That said, you guys enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to another episode with me and Subcritical. I am Jay, and today we have a special guest, Fareed, and we are all content creators in the Cardano ecosystem. Now, we're going to be starting out discussing a few topics here, and we'll be running down the topics in a second. But the first topic that we'll be going into is one that you may have seen some viral clips of, ones like this. We actually have somebody in the show today that is literally, living, breathing person that was at that event, and that's Subcritical. So we're going to be discussing this event first. But before we do that, Subcritical, do you want to give a rundown for the show and introduce Fareed a little bit and get some dialogue going before we get right into that first story? Because I think you said that there was some very interesting stuff that happened there that would be good to talk about. And if people don't hear it, they're missing out. So go ahead.
Yeah. I definitely had a lot of fun at the event. And I think a lot of people already know Fareed and what he's been doing over there on Dapp Central and talking about decentralized finance and things like that. But if you want to go ahead and talk about it a little bit yourself, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you guys for having me on. My name is Fareed. I run the Dapp Central YouTube channel. I actually got the pleasure of meeting Subcritical and JSpeak at the recent event, which took place as a part of CNFTCon in Vegas. So that was a really cool opportunity. But in summary, I run a pretty simple YouTube channel aiming to educate the broader Cardano space as to all of the ins and outs and all the builders in the ecosystem. So if you guys appreciate that kind of content, check me out, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you guys.
Dude, I want to just say too, Fareed, your channel has been looking very good. Very good. And, just watching you evolve, I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this is a channel that people can go to every single day, get quality updates when there is news. And definitely check out Fareed. But why don't we get into this show? So Subcritical, obviously you were at ETH Denver. Now, how do you want to lead this off? Do you want to quickly go over the other topics real quickly and then dive right into your experience? And I heard that you met Vitalik and you guys had a sandwich or something. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of fun over there, just kind of talking to different projects, checking out a lot of different talks. So one of the main quotes that stood out to me while I was there was that when you go to like a Web3 website, right, there's always a connect wallet with no create wallet, which would be the equivalent of a Web2 website having a sign in with no sign up. So I'm just curious what your thoughts were on that, because that really resonated with me, because I've seen that a lot where you go to these websites, especially like anything with DeFi or anything like that, and they always want you to connect your wallet, but no real explanation of like how to create one.
Yeah, Fareed, why don't you go first, man?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting concept, and one thing that I'm thinking about here, right, and what Subcritical has mentioned is a lot of these people that are allowing for us to connect our wallet don't necessarily actually have a wallet to provide themselves. So, for example, when you go to sign up on Yahoo, you're creating an account with Yahoo, right? So they can ask you to sign up and you can connect directly from there. But if I'm going to MinSwap, for example, on Cardano or on whatever platform, I can connect my wallet to the DEX, right? But the DEX may not necessarily have a native wallet themselves. So I think that's why we're in the situation that we're in. But I wouldn't necessarily expect to have a wallet from every single DEX provider or from every single Dapp provider that I'm using. So I understand why we're in the situation that we're in. But to remedy that, I think what we could do is allow for somebody or for these dApps to point us back to a centralized, not a centralized place, but a specific place where we can then create our wallet. So for example, if I'm going to MinSwap, they can maybe then point me to, you know, the Nami wallet, Yoroi wallet, Eternal wallet, etc.
A browser extension, a Google
exactly.
Chrome extension wallet.
Exactly. And so even if they're not allowing me to create a wallet directly from them themselves, they're at least pointing me to do that. That way I've got the ability to go ahead and do that somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would also like to, because that was covered, paint another layer, I guess, because one of the things that we're going towards is this future where all of a sudden, you know, the ancient problem, the impossible issue that humans face, which is having too many passwords and usernames, suddenly disappears. Because when you can just connect onto a site and it is able to recognize, you know, your past activity on that site, you're able to instantly have all your funds available on that website without having to do any bank transfers or call anybody. That is the future. I think the infrastructure is actually still being built. People think it's already built, but I think it's still being built because, you know, to properly scale that and have it, you know, be a future where you do just connect. You don't sign in, and maybe something like Fareed just said, maybe you redirect to a browser extension wallet, and eventually everybody just has a wallet that's interoperable with enough ecosystems to make it a standard or a norm. I think, you know, the point being, we're going to a future where you only have one username and password, and that's your wallet with some digital identity architecture fitted neatly inside of that wallet user interface. And that's kind of the future that gets me excited, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of sending those emails to myself to reset my password every time I forget my password. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because I feel like on our side we're moving in a different direction, whereas like on the other side of like normal like Web2 activity, especially with like Apple, right? Like a lot of the times you can connect with your Apple account anywhere now, but you can send like a fake email address so they don't get your actual information and stuff like that. So giving away our information, like when you're like using Google, where you're always like saying like, hey, here's my Google email address, send me all your junk. We've kind of like started to learn like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be giving that out to everybody. Like maybe we should keep it a little safe. It's like the same thing with like our address. You don't just give it to everybody around you, right? So I think, I don't know, we got to find that mix of where it works, of what we can give out to like a DEX by just connecting our wallet right away or signing up for their wallet.
And it's interesting. I just want to add one last thing here, if you guys don't mind. I'm sure you guys are both aware of Meld. They had their testnet launch not too long ago, and I made a video covering that. And one of the features that Meld implemented was the ability to sign in using their platform, which is a lending and borrowing platform, using Google. I thought that that was an amazing thing, right? But then I quickly realized that when I posted the video, the number one comment that I got from the community was, we don't want Google to have our information. We don't want to sign in through Google, right? So I think there's a fine line between letting somebody like Google or Microsoft, whoever, right, have access to some of our really key information in this space. And people are really torn. Some people like, hey, just like Crypto or JSpeak, excuse me, said, right, like it takes out the hassle, but some people would much rather keep their own stuff to themselves in terms of wallets, as opposed to letting somebody else manage that. So I think it's an interesting position for us to be in. but I do like the ability to have the option. So if you want to keep everything yourself, you can still do that. But then if you want to maybe go, the simplified route where you don't want to necessarily manage your 24-word seed phrase or go through the hassle of creating a wallet on your own and managing that on your own, having somebody else to actually help you out with that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Fareed, and we can move on to the next topic. But I do think that what the Web3 piece that's useful is data protection, encryption, and it's not always talked about or seen that way. And we build a lot of different products. We have NFTs and we're building metaverses with this stuff. But if you just want to uh, imagine a digital identity infrastructure embedded into a wallet that is interoperable enough with enough ecosystems, at that point, I think we'll have the infrastructure necessary to not only protect your data when you sign in with your wallet, but also not have to remember a bunch of usernames and passwords. So yeah, again, that's the stance. But why don't we go to the next topic here, and we'll sort of circle back to Fareed after this one. So I'll go with my topic next, which is Subcritical. Fareed, both you guys are in the DeFi ecosystem, but obviously you're aware of other aspects of blockchain and crypto. So which projects now in Cardano, I would like to exclude the layer one Cardano token because I think that's a pretty easy one. And you can kind of talk about different projects in the Cardano ecosystem to pick from that group, that selection, that crop. But which projects will be here in 3 years still? And which project will actually be the most likely to be here in 3 years, more accurately stated, is the question. So what do you guys got? Subcritical, why don't you go first, and then we'll go to Fareed.
Yeah. So when it comes to DeFi, right, you're going to need certain things. So like, especially you're going to need some kind of DEX because you need a place for people to swap. Otherwise, there's no, exchanging of tokens. We're also going to need lending and borrowing. It's a huge portion of DeFi. And then, we can have synthetics and things like that in there. But I'm going to touch on that here at the end. So first of all, we're going to need DEX. And I think right now, MinSwap's ahead of the pack, leading the race. They got the most innovations going on, a lot of cool stuff going on. But the only thing I could see hindering them or handicapping them is some kind of regulation that comes in, especially the way that they did their sale and things like that. So I'm thinking MinSwap's going to be here in 3 years unless some huge regulation comes. And then right behind them, we still have Wing Riders, who's been doing everything completely legal and like working that way. So I think they've kind of protected themselves on that front. So if something big regulation comes through, one of those is going to be here for sure.
I've always respected Wing Riders for that.
Yeah. Number 2, so we're going to need lending and borrowing. And I would say right now we do have Liquid here, but AADA Finance for me has shown a more proven track record so far with, launching a first good product and then upgrading it and continuing with it. So for now, I would go with AADA Finance until I see more from Liquid, especially since they're just kind of starting out with their
you took the under on that one then.
Yeah,
I would say that you took the under a little bit because, more broadly stated is probably the reverse, right? Most people are rooting for the they're not rooting for, or they don't have kind of conviction on sort of the underdog in that situation, which would be AADA versus Liquid, just from like a everything standpoint, really, right? I think market cap, if I'm not mistaken, but we can pull that up. Yeah, Liquid is number 3 in fungible tokens for market cap, and it's got 550 million ADA.
Yep, and I think when AADA Finance releases more, to it, it'll be competing right there with them. So we'll kind of see how that works out in 3 years. I mean, it's a bold.
No. I want to compliment you because that is an interesting take. I will give you that, Subcritical. That's an interesting take.
Right. And then, so we were talking about with synthetics. I really do love Indigo and things like that, but things are getting a little I don't know, with synthetics, things feel kind of weird there. So with my third, I'm actually just going to go and I don't know. It's kind of weird because we do need stable coins in the ecosystem right now. Is Jed the ultimate one, right? As for now, it's
Yeah.
kind of what we got, and we'll kind of see what happens with the 3 next years. But I'm gonna pick Cody's Jed for now because I think they're gonna be around at least for 3 years.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I think that one's actually, obviously the favorite. But yeah, okay. let's go to Fareed.
I want to say, first off, Subcritical took two of mine, so I'm going to try to keep this interesting. As he read them out, I'm like, okay, well, let me add something else to the list. But there's one category he didn't touch on, so I'm going to mention this project, and I'm sure you guys will both be in agreement here. So number one, I was going to mention MinSwap as a DEX, right? We need a way for people to interact and swap tokens and move them from A to B. Without that, there's no ecosystem. Echoing Subcritical, I think this community, the MinSwap community, has done an awesome job of listening to the people, and they continue to build. I think just this past week we saw them add support for Yoroi. We saw them add support to like export our trade history. And so I'm just like, man, like these guys are thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of the other guys. And it's not to take away from anybody else. I think Wing Riders is a solid team. They just added charts to their platform. So everybody's innovating in this space. I just think MinSwap is doing it at the fastest rate. And their latest release of their monthly stats reflects that with over 160 million in terms of trading volume in a single month. So that's number one is MinSwap.
And what's the do we have comps? Do you have any comps on that for other dexes to kind of showcase where MinSwap is versus, you know what I mean? If those stats are locally available, I'll try to look them up.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I actually mentioned this in my updates video. I'm not seeing any other projects doing something like this. The only other project that I've seen release monthly stats and review for the community was AADA Finance, right? Which is another one that Subcritical also mentioned. So these are 2 projects that are building, and they're being very openly transparent about how much activity they're getting. But if nobody else is providing that, it's hard to kind of judge, right? So my hope is to see Wing Riders, Muesli Swap, Sunday Swap also begin to release monthly stats and review, and just any project in Cardano, because that really helps us to understand where they are. And the cool thing about that is you can look at last month. So in my last video that I released on my channel, I compared where MinSwap was when they released their update in January versus where they are now in February. Another project that has been doing this as well has been Indigo. So they've been doing this. I think they're on like their 3rd update, but they do a really good job of letting us know how many CDPs are open, what are the APRs, how many new people came to the platform, etc. So I don't have any comps to compare side by side yet, Jay, but I hope to see that, come in the near future as some of these other platforms release those stats.
Yeah, I think Wing Riders has a good amount of stats. I don't know if they have a tally like that though. But yeah, I would definitely agree, man. MinSwap, very innovative team. So yeah, definitely good, interesting pick there first, Fareed. But yeah, keep going.
Okay, so that's pick number 1 within the DEX space. Again, I think that's critical to how the ecosystem is just going to move forward. Number 2, I've got a metaverse play, and that's going to be Cornucopias. Rob and Josh, I see them being here for more than 3 years easily, right? Their roadmap stretches out to, I think, 2026, 2027. Not only will they be on, regular PC, they're going to be on mobile, they're going to be on console, they're going to be on every platform available for them to really build on. On top of that, they've already shown us that they can build, right? All 3 of us were at CNFTCon. I think all 3 of us got a chance to actually play the game, right? There's not many other platforms right now within the space that you're actually able to get a feel for how things are going to look before they release. Now, I do know Pavia did release like their Plaza event where you could kind of run around, and that was very cool too. But what
they just released Playground too, which is going to be a perpetual sort of place that they already test stuff in. They release new features in. It's 100 plots. It's not like 100 real plots, but it's just like a space. And they're just going to start opening it up so that way people can just watch what they're testing each day, and people can just come in and talk to each other. It's called Playground. But yeah, I know Cornucopias has the custom domes and theme zones and a couple other assets in their ecosystem. So I think they're really it's going to be interesting how they tie different aspects of the game to the different assets. But yeah, keep going.
Agreed. Agreed.
Absolutely.
The last thing I want to say about Cornucopias, I think they've got the strongest community in the space.
They have a
They're
wicked community. They have
they're
a wicked community, man, and
over.
they have some gamer guild like they have some people that are familiar with like guilds and gaming, which is a new niche, which is hard to find people like that, anyways. But
Yes.
I guess they're looking for projects to kind of speculate in, but also get involved in,
Hmm.
maybe become something. And yeah, they've attracted that crowd. So I mean, and that's only a small part of their community. I mean, they have a lot of
Right.
other niches. But yeah, keep going
Right.
for
Right. So yeah, I think that's why Cornucopias is my number two pick to really be here for the long term. I think not only do the founders have the experience, they've got the vision, and they've also got the platform. Again, they've shown us already that they can build, and we're going to be expecting to see some of their MVPs in Q2 of this year. So I'm excited about that. The third, again here, Subcritical took Jet straight out of my mouth. So Subcritical, I think you and I are on the same page. But I do want to say that I'm excited for USDA. Now, USDA obviously isn't here yet, but I think
it.
that they're going to be here to stay because, again, without that in the ecosystem, without some kind of stablecoin in the ecosystem, it's going to be very, very hard for people to kind of save their gains, right? Like right now, a lot of people are not really able to save their gains, or at least prior to Jet, they weren't able to save their gains because there was no kind of stable asset. But now that we've got that, people just kind of flooded straight into Jet. Now, that's the only option aside from IUSD, right? But as we get more options and we get more platforms that are even easier to use than Jet, right? I think we're going to see those begin to get adoption. So I'm excited for USDA. I think that what they're bringing is a simple concept. Again, not a knock on Jet. Jet is revolutionary in the fact that it was one of the first big platforms to really come on here. But USDA, I think, is going to be very simple. There's no over collateralization kind of thing. There's no 4 to 800% ratio. There's no Shen involved. It's just you get USDA, it's backed in a bank, and you can verify everything is backed by fiat 1-to-1. So that's why I'm picking that as my third pick.
Yeah, I'm really interested when like we're gonna get more info because they did say what like first quarter they were supposed to release something. We've been kind of waiting on USDA, and I am interested, especially if the regulations moving forward, where we saw some weird things with Circle and things going on there. So I don't know. We're gonna see interesting things, I think, because like now BUSD is not going to be minted anymore, so there is going to be room for another dollar peg stablecoin with fiat behind it. But I don't know. Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to see what happens there. And then also with IUSD, one thing that interests me is when the price of ADA starts going way high. Everybody who has IUSD like that made it is going to want to get their ADA back because they're going to want that money. So we're going to see a huge flood, I think, of people just exiting out of
Yeah, I agree with that. And we haven't had a big price swing yet. We've got a little taste of it, right? This past month in January. But I think what Subcritical just said there's going to be key. Watching how people flood in or out of stables as the price of ADA begins to go up, right? Because they flood into stables when the price of ADA is going down. Are they going to do the opposite when the price of ADA starts to go up against the value or against the peg value of that dollar?
That's a really good transition, maybe to Cardano TVL, which is one of
it. Oh
Fareed's
yeah.
topic.
Yeah. So I guess just kind of introducing this, and I want to get your guys' take on this. We saw Cardano TVL hit an all-time high of about 324 million ADA in terms of ADA valuation, not dollars. I want to be clear about that. And that was in March of 2021. Now, since then, March of 2022, excuse me. Since then, the value of ADA that we've had on the network has slowly decreased up until about 4 to 5 months ago, in which it's been rebounding very, very heavily. That said, I think right now we're at about a TVL of about 310, 15-ish. So we're like right up against creating an all-time high. And on some platforms, it actually shows that we've already created an all-time high. But again, this is in the ADA valuation. So my question to you guys is, as we're seeing Cardano TVL rise, and if you compare this to other blockchains like Ethereum, they're nowhere near putting in new highs in terms of TVL. What are your guys' thoughts as to the potential within Cardano, given these early kind of signs that we're seeing that liquidity is coming in, even though the dollar value may not necessarily show an all-time high, the ADA value is showing that more people are continuing to put their ADA into DeFi, into stables, right? We've got liquid finance that just came out. We've got Jet with 12 million locked in. So that's my question to you guys is, what's your guys' thoughts on the potential of ADA, given what we've already seen with the continuous pouring in of Cardano into the ecosystem?
TVL is in crypto has always sort of been a little bit of, do we know the TVL or do we not? There's a little bit of smoke and mirrors that can be played with TVL. I don't look at it as a hard fact metric, whether an ecosystem is showing success or not. I think it's usually segmented just to a DeFi ecosystem, which already not all blockchains are, useful for that, or that's not their only use. And I do think that with all the dApps coming online to for Cardano, that's why our TVL in terms of DeFi has grown, really, because we didn't really have the dApps before. So we are getting those new highs, to Fareed's point, but we didn't, we're also the younger, we just are younger. We're younger or Cardano is younger of an ecosystem. I would say it's better looking. And, maybe Ethereum's a couple years older, but I mean, it still needs time to mature, even if it's a little better looking and maybe a little, better at sports and whatnot. It still needs time to mature because its older brother is, much stronger physically because it has those years to mature. So that's all. I would also say too, besides saying that it's kind of smoke and mirrors of a metric, I would say give it time for the Cardano ecosystem. We haven't made our highs yet. We haven't even gone to the gym and tried to make highs in the bench press. So we're breaking highs because we haven't tried yet.
I want to just add two things real quick, and then Subcritical, I want to get your take on that. So you talked about NFTs. I think that's one thing that would be interesting to see how that compares across ecosystems. Again, given that Cardano is a lot younger, we're probably not going to have as much locked in there. But I will say the Cardano community has stepped up, right? We've seen issues on Solana, right? And Ethereum, I think, is still going strong, but people didn't give Cardano a lot of credit. And I think after the recent issues on Solana, we've seen a lot of NFT value come into our ecosystem and people actually begin to give us more credibility. The second thing I wanted to mention was TVL, I agree with you, is not the end all be all. As we've seen on other blockchains as well, people have spoofed TVL. So again, I think it's something that we can look at, but let's not hang our hat on TVL, whether we're below other ecosystems or whether we're making all-time highs. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Subcritical, man, let's get your take on where we stand right now.
Yeah, so I definitely like looking at the stat. I know a lot of people are just like, it doesn't matter, or put all of our, Cardano staking in there, and then we're billions or whatever. But I do like to watch it.
One quick thing on that too, Subcritical. So it looks like the top 100 collections by market cap on CNFT Jungle, the collection's total worth based, on floor price. So granted, some things will probably sell for a lot more if they're rare. Some things probably don't have liquidity behind them, but these are the top 100 collections. So they probably all have liquidity. So this is a conservative estimate, considering, these estimates are based on floor prices with NFTs because you can't really do it any other way. You have $420 million ADA of total worth for just the top 100 collections. So, it's interesting how $420 million of value have been created from the NFT ecosystem in a year. And we were all part of it. I mean, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, that's pretty wild stat to think about. But going back to what I was saying, I watch TVL. I like to see it. For a while, we were seeing the when the price of ADA started going up again after we hit 25 and then bounce, you were seeing TVL and dollars go up, but ADA TVL kept going down. So you could see that people were taking their money out and just selling it, whatever they're doing, selling into this thing that was happening. But then when new DApp started showing up, uh, I think people started to realize that they can, put their ADA into some kind of DApp on Cardano while they're also earning their staking rewards. Because before that was what you were giving up to go use stuff is your staking rewards. Like, why give up my guaranteed 3 to 4% to just go use this thing that now I'm getting a permanent loss on a DEX and like I'm getting a token that's
It's like a
dropping
lobster trap.
every
I
week. Yeah.
RBS Spies says, right? It's like you're literally taking your funds and putting it into like this area, and you're kind of signing something in between. So yeah. Obviously, new DeFi users, be careful because we've all been burned. But yeah, keep going. Subcritical.
Yeah. So we saw people starting to use these more, especially now that we have like Jed, where they're like, okay, now I got a stable coin. I'm still earning staking rewards and I'm earning these other rewards, which we could get into that also too, where people are a little bit mad about Shen rewards. But and then Liquid Finance is also using it where you can still earn your staking rewards. Indigo is still allowing you to earn your staking rewards. So we got all these things going on. It's like you can still earn your percentage and then earn more on top of that. Well, now you are taking on smart contract risks. So that's something you got to think about. But I think people are over that hill now where they want to use it a little bit more. And that's why we've seen this increase where we're getting close to our old TVL. And then overall in TVL, I just want to talk about Jay wants to get on. But at this Ethereum Denver, I was going to DeFi things and they were talking about we need liquidity in our markets and DeFi, this thing that's leaving. The amount of rewards you can get is not max, like meeting treasury and all this stuff. They are looking at traditional finance and saying, how can we get this liquidity in? And we're over here looking at Ethereum saying, hey, how do we get that liquidity in? And it's like this cascade of liquidity going down instead of like us all equal. And it's just really interesting to me that we're all fighting for crumbs from somebody above us. And we haven't really like established ourselves anywhere yet.
That said, though, I do want to just kind of quickly jump back into something that Subcritical had mentioned with how we're fighting for crumbs within the TVL space, right? And I think what we need to really be doing is taking a look at how do we bring in people into blockchain and crypto that aren't in the space, as opposed to trying to fight for Solana's liquidity, Ethereum's liquidity, every other blockchain's liquidity, because all we're doing is just taking it from this pot and moving it to this other pot. But it's not any new liquidity. It's not any new interest, right? So it doesn't help us to fight against each other. What we really need to be doing is figuring out ways to get new people into the space that haven't participated in this before. And I think the way that we're able to do that is through education, which obviously that's what we're all, I think, doing here in our own way. But I wanted to just briefly touch on that point, because when you said that, that's what came to my mind was we have to stop the infighting and we have to stop comparing ourselves to Ethereum, comparing ourselves to Solana, comparing ourselves to all these other blockchains, and just understand that in order for all of us to grow, we really need new people that come here with a genuine interest, not just to, take advantage of other people or just to make quick and easy money, which is what crypto's advertised as.
I think we should close it down though, and maybe we can chat after we close it. But for the audience, thank you so much. Just let us know what you think of this collaboration. We're probably going to try to work with Fareed more in the future as well. Anything you want to mention, Fareed? Where to find you? Anything of that nature?
Yeah.
How you enjoyed the show? If you think that this is the best, podcast you ever been on, things of that nature would be great too. Whatever you want to say, really though.
It is. It's actually been a blast being on here with you guys. First and foremost, thank you guys for reaching out. I think, again, that we need a lot more of this in this space. I think you guys are both doing a really awesome job when it comes to content creation in your own rights. And that's one thing I wanted to just kind of share was that everybody can contribute to this space, right? I know Subcritical recently started his own YouTube channel, and he's just been killing it, right? So J Crypto's been giving them some readers here and kind of teaching them the ropes, I'm sure, and vice versa, right? You guys are able to learn from each other. I'm looking forward to hopefully being back on here again. Again, thank you guys for opening up your platform to me. I had a blast talking about these different topics, and I look forward to continue to contribute to Cardano, man. It's been a fun time here, and I'm also looking forward to seeing you guys hopefully in person as a part of CNFT Con in 2023. So thank you for sharing your platform with me, man. I appreciate it.